right, hello and welcome to the OnStage Colorado podcast for October 29th or so. I'm Alex Miller and I'm here once again with Toni Tresca. Hey, how's it going, Toni?
Hey, Alex. It's going good. How are you doing?
All right. Well, I know we've both been out at the theater seeing stuff, and there's a ton of stuff coming up. I feel like I'm always saying that, but there really is quite a few shows coming up that we're going to be reviewing on the site. So we're recording here on October 28th on Saturday. So keep that in mind when we say this week or that week. So we're going to, as usual, we're going to talk about some of the latest shows that we've seen and or reviewed, as well as take a look at some of the ones that are coming up around Colorado. Also, later in the podcast is a fun interview I did with an actor named Jim Newman. He plays Bill in the Broadway touring production of Mamma Mia that opens at the Buell on Halloween night. This is the 25th anniversary of the Mamma Mia musical, and it's also it's really the whole tour is starting in Denver. He was in Elmira, New York. They were doing rehearsals, but Denver is the first stop, and so they're going to be here. And it's a great conversation. It was really interesting to get some insight into the life of a touring actor, and also bonus, he just kind of mentions like, oh, by the way, I spent 10 years playing the cowboy in The Village People, which was like, I know, I was like, wow. And so he'd been all over the world and with, with this, with the original band. I don't know how many people are left in it. It's like, maybe it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts, or something like that, where, someone plays the cowboy. Or whatever. So that'll be coming up a little later in the pod. So hang on for that. So one of the things that we were just talking about was, you had been at Sondheim at Cherry Creek. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So last night I was at Coal Country at Boulder Ensemble Theater Company at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder. And I was thinking about, it's 90 minutes with no intermission, and which, it seems like intermission is kind of going by I don't know, is it old fashioned to have an intermission? What's going on with intermissions these days?
I don't know. I feel like, I think it is a little bit, to answer the first question, and then I'll go on to, and then I'll elaborate more. I do think intermissions are slightly falling out of fashion, particularly with new plays. Like I feel like you're hard pressed to find a new play. Both of the DCPA's new plays were one act last year. I think Clyde's is Coal Country, over at BETC. Yeah, I think it is just this newer trend. I'm not sure where it's coming from. If it's coming from just like audience attention, like don't have the same attention span. But I definitely am noticing a trend in newer playwrights axing that intermission, whereas maybe they would have tried to put something in or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And I've talked to a number of people about this, like my son, who's often my plus one at a lot of shows. He really likes intermission. He's like, I want to go out. I want to stretch my legs, use the bathroom, get a drink, whatever. And I also think, this is kind of like a biological imperative for some people, especially men of a certain age, that going 90 minutes without that, hitting the bathroom can sometimes, be a stretch. And like you look at the average age of theater audience, you think, wow, is everybody just like sitting there dying?
Yeah, I was talking, and I wonder if I think it might also just be literally audience dependent sometime, because I was at Stu Teatro to see Wolf at the Door, which that play is written as a one act play. However, Stu Teatro performed it with an intermission. I was talking to the director and she was just like, I know our audience. And she's like, our audience would not stand for not having an intermission. We have to give them, because they will just walk up and get out to go to the bathroom. She's like, so we don't want them to miss anything. And so they put an intermission into a play that does not have an intermission.
That's interesting. Another thing that struck me is like, when you're at the movie theater, nobody thinks twice if you get up to go get a drink or go to the bathroom during the middle of a show. Why is it taboo in theater, do you think?
I think it's because it's like there are live people. I think there is that element where it is like, I don't know, I feel awkward if someone's like performing on stage and I'm like, hey, can you scoot over? I need to pass by, trying to get out, Get back. Maybe you can't get back in. So I think it's a little bit.
It's definitely more of a thing.
But I'll also say this. So I recently went to Killers of the Flower Moon, which is a 3.5-hour behemoth movie, and I went with a friend who's from India, and she turned to me about halfway through the movie, and she was like, "When's the intermission coming?" And I was like, "This is a movie. There's no intermission." And she's like, "In India, there are intermissions with movies. It's traditional in a movie to have that kind of built-in break time." She was like, "You Americans are weird that you don't have like your break." It's very they treat films very similar to theatrical performance and include a break time.
Well, it is weird, especially for theaters that are trying to, maximize their revenue in a time when in the streaming age. It's like you would think a 10-minute intermission would be a boon for sales at the, concessions counter, right?
So I was talking with so over at Curious, they had a similar conversation, actually, literally about bar sales, because they were like, we had been kind of programming these one acts because that's what's in at the moment. But then they were like, we noticed we were losing a lot of revenue. Like, people aren't buying. They maybe buy their one drink at the start, but they're not. Usually intermission is when the big spenders go to the bar. You have that time, mule around, go outside. So I don't know. I think maybe it is venue specific and dependent, because the Sondheim I was at last night had an intermission. Appreciate it. It was a 20-minute intermission.
Wow. Yeah. And it's also, when you think about if you're going to have an intermission, you've got the opportunity to go out there and get a drink, but you also, sometimes it's fun to go out there and talk with whoever you're with about what you've seen so far. A little halftime report, So my take is, so we're talking a little bit about the advantages of having one or not having one. I mean, clearly there's an advantage for the theater for some additional revenue. And there's an advantage for the audience that wants to take a break, but I'm like, I like, to me, like a 75-minute play with no intermission is kind of like a sweet spot. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if your show is more than 75 minutes, you should have an intermission. And that's just
I like that.
That's my Alex's benchmark there. So
I like that. I like that rule. I'd say if it's over 75 minutes, you've got to have that break.
So it's hard to know why these plays have headed in this direction. But what do you think is the ideal length of a play? You were at Sondheim on Sondheim, and you were just saying before we started that it seemed a little long.
It was. So I think I generally have a little bit more grace for musical properties.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Musicals, I'm typically kind of okay with like being a 2 hour to 15 with that intermission as well. Play, I can kind of go either way. I think I kind of like your internal rule about if it's longer than 75 minutes, it should have an intermission. But I like the short plays. I can do a 2-act if it's appropriate. But I don't know. I think it really starts to cross a line when you're like asking for like almost 3 hours of people's time.
Yeah.
I felt that way. I liked Killers of the Flower Moon too. So it's not a hypocrite. It's both. I think it's just like in general, I'm like, it just depends. But yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of a really long ass play that I saw recently was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which the Denver Center did a season or two ago. And that is a long play and it's super intense. And, there was an intermission. But it was such a great play that I didn't really mind the length, but there are definitely some plays where I'm like, oh my God, when is this going to end? Even if I liked it, I'm just like, okay, I think they've hit it. They've hit all the points I want. So anyway, yeah. And
I think that maybe is honestly maybe why we're seeing the tighter plays. Like maybe it's a response narratively. Like you don't want to waste people's time, but then also you get that weird thing where you don't want to cut the intermission, maybe necessarily. So it's a fine line you have to consider.
Yeah, well, we've got, we're an age where there's the TikTok video, there's these extremely short pieces of content that people like, but people will also listen to an hour or hour and a half long podcast. But maybe they're doing it in their car and their commute. So yeah, it's state dependent, I guess. So, but anyway, I think all theaters would benefit by, like you said, Su Teatro knows their audience. is your audience that you're, presenting a 2-hour long play with no intermission happy about that? Are they okay with it? You might, it's always good to survey your audiences about a lot of things, but that would definitely be a question I would ask if I was a theater owner.
I think that's a good question to ask.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, a look around the state at all of the live theater coming up as we round the corner past Halloween into November and the holiday season. The OnStage Colorado podcast is sponsored in part by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, BETC, whose new production of Coal Country shares the riveting story of a small West Virginia mining community moving through tragedy to make itself heard. The play by Eric Jensen and Jessica Blank also features music by 3-time Grammy Award winner Steve Earle. Coal Country runs October 26th through November 19th at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder, and you can get tickets at thedairy.org and learn more about the show at betsy.org. All right, welcome back to the OnStage Colorado podcast. I'm Alex Miller here with Toni Tresca, and it's time for our weekly peek into some of the shows you can see on stage right now around Colorado. And we're going to talk about the ones that we've both, one or both of us has seen and that we've reviewed or are about to review on the website. So the first one was one I saw just last weekend at Evergreen Players, and this was Nevermore. And it's a show, it's a musical about Edgar Allan Poe, and who had a pretty miserable life, despite, having some decent success as a writer, which I think, was a lot greater after he died. But so this was a musical that had, it was very expository. It was like, telling the story, and the premise is that it's an older Edgar Allan Poe, I guess near his death, and he's on a ship, and he meets this acting troupe that agrees to act out his life in these, and so it's kind of an interesting premise, and I found the songs themselves were sort of not very memorable, and they all sounded sort of the same to me. It is an interesting show, and it's definitely interesting to hear about the life of sort of one of our greatest American literary figures. They had a little bit of trouble with sound. They had one of the actors had this huge booming voice, and the guy that played it was a pretty young actor who played Edgar Allan Poe, who was barely audible at times, and so there's a little bit of disparity there. But overall, it's a pretty good show up at Center Stage there in Evergreen that I'd say is worth going to check out. A little closer to the Denver area here, Dreamgirls at Lone Tree. And I know, so Eric Fitzgerald, our reviewer, posted a review of this. He really liked it, and you saw it and you raved about it, right?
I loved it. It's so good. It was so good. I wasn't even commissioned to review Dreamgirls, but it somehow slipped its way into my review of Tina Turner, because I was like, I just have to talk about it. It was such a well done production, directed by Kenny Moten, a first musical back in the Lone Tree Arts Center, almost entirely a local cast, masterful set designed by Kevin Mielsen, this grand, massive stadium and multi-level set that just really brings you into these musical moments. And I've seen Dreamgirls before. I'm sure I will see it again, but this is not a production of Dreamgirls to miss. It was so well done. Yeah,
I know we talked about it some last week, and it seems like everybody's really, really loving Dreamgirls right now. So that's at Lone Tree Arts Center, and that is playing through
the 29th, I think, tomorrow.
Okay, so that's just about to end. So as we record here, it's got one more show on Sunday. So also Wolf at the Door at Su Teatro, which Eric reviewed on our site, and that you also saw. So we talked about this some last time too, and I was like, wow, magical wolf lady, that sounds cool. And so, but that's well worth seeing, it sounds like. For the kids, Sleepy Hollow at Miners Alley Playhouse is Miners Alley Playhouse. Julie Walker was at that with some of her family, and said it was great. And they always do a great job with kids shows. So that one's running, I think, through, into early November. And then Coal Country, we were just talking about a little bit. So this is the first show of the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, or BETC, their new season under new management with Jess Robley and Mark Reagan at the helm. And so Coal Country is a pretty heavy duty drama. It has some light parts in it, but it's also got a musical element. So the original show had some songs written by Steve Earle, who's kind of well known in the, I don't know, I guess Americana sort of country-ish realm. And so there was a guy on stage with a guitar singing some songs that told some of the stories of these miners who were killed in this terrible real mining accident in 2010 and about the evil corporation that, kind of put them in that position, and they kind of walked away with a slap on the wrist. And so it's really kind of a heartbreaking tale, and it's told from the point of view of the family members who lost folks. So really powerful show. Definitely give it a strong recommendation to go check that out. The Dairy Arts Center. So it just opened, so that'll be running for a few more weeks. And you're going to get out and see that soon, aren't you?
Tonight, I'll be heading over to Boulder tonight before my Halloween party.
All right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a full house of a very enthusiastic audience to see that. So, and then also you were at Sondheim on Sondheim at Cherry Creek Theater last night. And what was your take on that one?
My take on it was that it was very, very well done on the whole. Bernie Cardell, who's the artistic director over at Vintage as well, directs, and Rob Lowe is the music director, and he's also on stage the entire time playing the piano. And I want a special shout out to him because he truly is the heartbeat of the show, and through his he plays with his melodies and the form of it a lot to just create these really interesting ways that I've never heard Sondheim's work presented before, and the 8-person cast just does a really nice job. Only thing, and I'm just finishing up my review of it for the site, was you definitely feel there are a couple of Sondheim shows that are not as iconic. I'm looking at you, Passion, and A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Forum. I'm sure they have their fans, but you definitely feel that they're not quite at the same level as the other ones. And when it's almost 3 hours, you do notice that. But other than that, I would say it's a really, really good ode to Sondheim, and particularly given the Sondheim Renaissance we're in at the moment. 2 Sondheim shows on Broadway, then all over Denver. So it's a good time to check it out if you want to learn a little bit more about the man behind the words.
All right. Well, Cherry Creek always does a great job, so I'm sure it's a strong production. So before we talk about some of the other shows coming up, I was just going to mention that the Colorado Shakespeare Festival just announced their season for next summer. So they're doing Macbeth as well as The Merry Wives of Windsor, which I've never seen. So I'm excited to see that one. That's kind of one of the comedies. Plus they usually do a non or Shakespeare adjacent show. And this year it's Arden of Faversham, which is some sort of a true crime thing. And I don't know that they're doing many dates, but it's one of their original practices show, which is, have you ever seen one of those? I haven't. I just where they kind of use the approach of how it would have looked back in the day, right?
That's right. Yeah. I know that they did Comedy of Errors in that style this past season, but they always sell out. So I missed it. No, I didn't get to
Yeah. Well, we should try and get to that next summer, so we can plan ahead. And then, of course, it's a little bit of a shorter schedule for them because they are the Mary Rippon Theater, which is the outdoor, beautiful theater that they've had there on the University of Colorado campus in Boulder for many years, is undergoing a big renovation. So all the shows will be in the Row Green Theater, which has also been recently renovated, and it's a pretty nice theater in there as well. So yeah, and I think tickets for those will be on sale before too long. So if you're really planning ahead, Colorado Shakespeare Festival next summer. So
if you want to get to the original practice, no joke, you may want to start looking at your calendar now.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, coming up, our coverage will be, it's a very busy week coming up. So as I mentioned, Mamma Mia is going to be at the Denver Center. I'll be on Wednesday. I've got a 4 in a row weekend because I've got 4 shows in a row. But you, also Cadillac Crew at Vintage Theater was, I think their original opening was delayed for some reason. So I know Eric was going to be at that this weekend. So we'll have a review of that. Do you know anything about that show, Toni?
I do. I've chatted with the cast for a piece that's coming out in Boulder Weekly this upcoming week, and I'll be there tomorrow at the matinee It's a show set in the 60s. It's about the women behind the civil rights movement who get ignored, and kind of telling those stories.
Okay, great.
4-person cast in their smaller stage. So excited to check that one out.
All right. Also coming up that I will be at Murder for Two at the Parker Schoolhouse. This is a Give 5 Productions production. So looking forward to that. I've never been to the Parker Schoolhouse. It's kind of like the smaller theater to the Pace Center. So we'll check that out. I'll be at Clyde's at the Denver Center on, I think, Friday night. So we've talked about that a little bit last weekend. So we'll be both be there for Clyde's, which is a comedy about a sandwich shop run by formerly incarcerated people of some sort. So looking forward to that. And it was also on the list of one of the top 10 most produced shows around the U.S. So sometimes an indication that this is probably a good show, right?
Just won a bunch of Tonys as well. And I was actually just in the Denver Center yesterday. I was touring the set with their scenic designers for a video piece I'm working on. But it's an insane set. They're cooking the entire time. So they warn you, do not come to the production hungry, because you will be smelling real food being cooked in front of you the entire time. So,
oh, wow. So they're got actual stoves and stuff on stage. That's great.
Oh, yeah. They walked me. Almost everything is working. The panini press, the griddle, the fridge, almost the fryer is not for obvious reasons. But
understandable. All right. That sounds great. I look forward to that. Also at Family Theater, Indescribable. So Eric will be at this one. This is a fairly short run for them. It's just November 3rd through 5th at the Aurora Fox, but it's an unusual show for them that it's a dance show. It's a musical comedy with that they're doing in conjunction with the Silhouettes, which is, I guess, a dance outfit, and it's shadow dance. And I'm going to guess you know something about this, Toni.
I do. I chatted with the team for Westward. Limited run, yeah. They're going to be in the Aurora Fox Art Center, kind of part of over in the Fox's season in transit. They're one of the groups who is renting it out before they kick off their official run in 2014. Yeah, the Silhouettes, they do shadow dance. They were on America's Got Talent, one of the finalists there. And this is just a heartwarming show about a shark. It's very unique for Family because, ironically, as you know, a lot of families shows aren't super family friendly. They kind of have they're kind of a little darker to them. Yeah. As I was chatting with their team about that, so they're excited that this is actually kind of a family friendly family show that they can welcome all ages to.
All right. Well, it's great. Those are always fun shows to go to at Family. So also coming up, another production of Nevermore, the one I was just talking about, that was at Evergreen. This is going to be at Fort Lewis College. And our sometimes reviewer way down south, Deborah Mayu, is going to have a review of that. Book of Will on the other end of the state up north in Fort Collins at the Lincoln Center we're going to have a review of that from our reviewer, Carrie Redmond. And then I will be at Loki's Monstrous Children, which is a new play by Ellen K. Graham. That'll be at Buntport. And she was our guest on the podcast last week. So looking forward to this one. It's kind of got a Norse mythology angle to it, or not angle. It's about Norse mythology and Loki's Monstrous Children. So that'll be coming up. On kind of a different kind of thing, Don Giovanni, Opera Colorado, is doing at the Ellie Calkins Opera House at the Denver Center, and Eric will be at that one. So we'll have a review of that. And then another one that Eric will be at is The Last Session at Town Hall Arts Center in Littleton. So this one is it's a semi-autographical musical about an aging pop star whose secret plans to end his experience with HIV by taking his own life are derailed when friendship, love, and music show up just in time! ! That's what it said on the website. So that one sounds like a fun one, and Town Hall always does a great job with musicals. So also on stage now are opening soon. So our first Christmas show that we've really talked about is 'Twas the Night Before Christmas plus the Charlie Brown Christmas is going to be at Longmont Theater November 4th through 12th. So it's kind of a little bit strange to do that in early November. But but always fun shows, especially for the family. At the Buell Theatre in Cripple Creek, they're doing The Play That Goes Wrong, a short run, November 2nd through 5th, but that is always a fun show to go to if you just want some silly laughs. And then right near your current place of hanging out at CU Boulder is Working, November 3rd through 12th, which is based on Studs Terkel's novel and our not novel, but book. And do you know anything about that? You going to go see that since it's at your school?
I will. I'm excited to go rep my I guess my current school. I'm not my alma mater. I'm at CU right now. But I'm excited to go over there. Bud Coleman is directing the production. The score is really unique. And they've chosen to do a localized version of the production, which means that you can either purchase the script as is using the original interviews that they did when the show was first written with workers, or you can opt to buy a localized version of the show, and you can do your own interviews with people who are working in where you're from. And so they've opted to do that. And so they're doing interviews with ski instructors,
wonderful,
people who work around Boulder and stuff like that. So yeah, it should be literally a version of Working that you've never seen before.
Absolutely. So, that sounds great.
Boulder specific.
Are you going to write anything about that one? We'd love to have a review of that.
I'd love to do a review for it. I had a preview of it for Boulder Weekly, but yeah, happy to jump on that.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So yeah, look forward to hearing what you have to say about that, because people just don't hear enough from ski instructors, I think. As a former lift operator myself, I'm telling you, it's a really fascinating industry with a lot of really funny stories, or interesting stories. All right, and then lastly, I was going to mention the Belle of Amherst is that. So this is a Boulder Ensemble Theater Company / Clover and Bee Productions production starring Jess Robley as Emily Dickinson. And so this ran earlier this year. It was really a big hit. It's a one-hander. And so it's going to be at Millabo November 2nd through 22nd. I think they're doing a couple of extra shows at BETC as well at the dairy. Yeah, they are. They're
going to be around Thanksgiving time. If you're in the Boulder area, you'll be able to catch the Belle of Amherst.
Right. Yeah. And Mark Reagan last night noted that they sold them all out. So they added a couple more shows. So if you want to see Jess as Emily, get on it. So, all right, it's time for Tony's Steve Jobs. I got one more thing. What is it this week, Tony?
So I've got one more thing. First that I really want to push out there is this interesting event coming up. So you can get it on your calendar. It's called the Shrek Rave. It's happening. Yeah, you heard me correct. I did not stutter.
The
Shrek as
Rave.
In the big ogre rave. So it's over at Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom in Denver on November 10th. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. They are just going to be, everybody's encouraged to come out in their swamp attire and just rave and go crazy to music from Smash Mouth and all that crazy stuff from the soundtrack. So this is going to be, I was talking with the people who are in charge of this event. They think this is going to sell out. So if you want to go, if Shrek Rave is on your bucket list, you better get tickets. So I definitely highlight that. And then the other thing I want to
get out your green face paint.
Yes, reuse your Halloween stuff if you. So the other thing I want to highlight is comedian Jay Farrow, who is from SNL. He's going to be at Comedy Works South this weekend, November 3rd and 4th. And I've got an interview with him that's going to be coming out from Westward this week. And he's just a fantastic comedian and impressionist. And so I think his show is going to be really fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I someday I would love to cover comedy a little more, when you have a little more bandwidth to do so. We're kind of focused on theater now, but there's a lot of great comedy going on in Denver for sure. And Colorado in general, I think. Yeah.
I was just I think I talked about it in the pod last week, the Flea Market. I ended up going to their monthly show. It was a lot of fun. Just 4 local comics, a musical artist, Baby, who played really rowdy crowd. A lot of good jokes about Twitter and such. So,
and and a couple of pods ago, we talked to one of the comedians involved with Don't Tell Comedy, which is a series of BYOB, different venue types things, $25 kind of thing. So that's a great one to check out as well, and alongside all of the other comedy clubs doing stuff. So, all right, well, absolutely a ton of stuff out there to go see all around the state. So thanks for walking through all that with me, Toni. And next week, I've got a great interview with Amelia Morse with Morse Actors Studio. I talked a little bit about this last time. She was the intimacy coordinator for Blasted, which is this crazy ass show at Benchmark Theater that's got a fair amount of nudity and oh wow, it's got everything. And so I was like, wow, I'd love to talk to the intimacy coordinator for this show. And so we talked about, how this is a kind of a newer role for a lot of theaters, since it kind of started in the Me Too movement days, where a lot of actors, especially female ones, were like, I need a little help here, rather than just saying, go at it and make it look real. And so she's got a lot of great insights into that side of producing a play that contains any of that kind of material. So definitely check back next week for that one. Thanks again, Toni, and we will be comparing notes again on lots of shows here pretty soon. So have a great week.
Yeah, always good to chat with you, Alex. Have a good one.
All right, here's my interview with Jim Newman from the touring production of Mamma Mia, opening on Halloween at the Denver Center. All right, so we're here with Jim Newman, who's part of the cast of the touring production of Mamma Mia that's going to be at the Denver Center's Buell Theatre starting on Halloween, right, Jim?
Yes, Halloween is our first performance there.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. It's great to see you. And I think you have a Colorado connection. You were in Heidi at the Denver Center was telling me you were in Almost Heaven, like that was like 20 years ago as John Denver.
Yeah. I've worked in Denver a lot, actually, because I was there for a month with the First National Kiss Me Kate. I was there for a week with Big. And also I've worked at the Arvada Center twice. I did the Full Monty there, and I did Big River there. So I've worked a lot in Denver. I love Denver. Beautiful.
Yeah. Where are you based?
I'm based in New York City.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're probably not home a lot, because looking at your CV, you're in a lot of touring shows, it looks like.
Yeah, well, I toured for a while, and then I stopped. And that last tour I did was Kiss Me Kate. That was 21 years ago. And then I was just doing, working in New York and stuff. And then my career changed. I became a Village person, and I started touring with the Village people as the Cowboy for the last 10 years.
You're kidding me! So oh my God!
This is my first show back in theater after 10 years. So I have traveled a lot. Yes.
Okay. So this is where is this Mamma Mia 25th anniversary tour at on its its tour?
We're just starting. Tonight is actually our first paid performance in Elmira, New York, which is sort of where they go out of town to get a space that's big enough so we can set our lights and our sound and our costume, our set. And that'll be the base for touring around the rest of the country. But Denver is actually where we open. November 2nd is our official opening of the tour in Denver.
Okay. But there's is the Halloween? Are those like previews?
I don't know why they do opening on Thursday. It's sort of like that in New York too. For some reason, they like to open on a Thursday or Friday. It's just sort of a tradition. I don't know why that is either, actually, but it happens a lot in New York.
Okay.
So they just decided to make. No, so the first performance is October 31st. Okay. That's our first performance. But for some reason, the opening night party and everything is on the 2nd.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you like Mamma Mia. It's available for seeing starting on Halloween. I wonder if are you expecting a lot of people to show up wearing their disco suits or anything because it's Halloween?
Oh,
I don't know.
I hope so. This is a kind of show that really gives the audience permission to get involved, right? To sing along or dance in the aisles. So for on-stage performers, that's like our dream, right? For an audience to have permission to be vocal and to have a really good time. And so I hope they get dressed up in their best disco gear and dance in the aisles. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
It's definitely encouraged.
Yeah. The last show that I saw at the Buell touring show I saw was Beetlejuice, and a lot of people were dressed up. I was surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It looked like Halloween. As far as the show, had you ever done this one before?
I had not done it, and I never saw it in New York. I saw the movie, of course, but I never saw the show in Broadway. You know, it's interesting when you're working in New York, you have one day off, and the last thing you want to do is go to a theater a lot of times. Yeah. So I see more shows when I'm not doing a show. And so if you work a lot, you don't get to see a lot sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, well, you're playing Bill Austin, who is the travel writer of the three guys who might be the girl's dad. And in the film, he was played by Stellan Skarsgård, I believe, right?
Right. Yes.
So what is Bill? How is he distinct from the other two men?
Well, what's interesting about Bill is like a party boy, right? He travels. He's chosen a life where he's living solo, and he travels around. And so, you know, he's probably hooked up a lot on his life.
All right.
So he had no idea that he would have had this kid, but he knows that certainly could be possible because he knows his lifestyle. But he is terrified of commitment and terrified of being a father and all those things that you associate with you know, married life. And so when he comes there, he just thinks it's going to be a walk down memory lane and a party. Right. And then, of course, it turns out to be something else. Uh-huh.
It's great. So what did you have to find, you know, in yourself as the actor to play Bill?
Well, you know, I'm a big kid, and I think there's that kind of like forever child quality about Bill. He just travels. He wants to he likes adventure, you know, and I sort of chosen that life too. I've traveled a lot. I'm not married. I mean, I'm in a relationship, but I've never had like a marriage with kids. I mean, I was a stepdad for 8 years, but I definitely understand that sense of adventure and the fear that settling down will make me lose a part of myself, you know, part of this thing that creates so much joy. And I definitely connect to that with Bill because I have the same impotence to restlessness to keep moving.
Right. Well, it sounds like a good fit then for this role.
Yeah.
So as far as the process goes, so if this is kicking off in like kind of late October, when did you start rehearsals for this production?
We've been in rehearsal for about a month. And what's really nice about this creative team, because they've done all the production since the very beginning. And so they've seen this show set, you know, this actor goes here, and I've my first 2 shows on Broadway I've replaced. And so when you come into a show, they say, okay, you walk over here, you say this line, you pick up this prop, and then you walk over there. And this creative team has been really amazing at not making us be cardboard cutouts of the original people who've done it. Okay. And that's in all aspects. Like they'll change choreography depending on what these people bring. And for an actor, that's so nice to be given the freedom to play and to try things and fail and go, oh, that doesn't work well. And sometimes it's a lot of extra work and a lot of extra patience for a creative team to give actors that responsibility when they know they could just plug them in, show them their spots and keep moving, right? But they have not done that with us, even with the people who've played the parts before. And it's just been a dream process that they've allowed us to make this our version of Mamma Mia.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I was going to ask you, so it's like the 25th. I can't believe it's been 25 years since I do remember when it came out.
I can't either. I forget how old I am.
Yeah, so a lot of times when there's like a 25th anniversary or any anniversary thing, there's something new or whatever they want to do. But it sounds like there's a little bit of that, but it's pretty much going to be what people expect of Mamma Mia.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect the book, you know, the writing and the songs. Like they intentionally, when they got permission to do this show, it's really interesting. ABBA said, we'll give you permission, but I want those songs to sound exactly like they were sounded on the radio. So all the arrangements and the vocals are done exactly like the radio, right? Like the radio original versions, because that's what the audience grew up hearing. That's what my sister got the ABBA Greatest Hits album when I was in junior high for Christmas, and I'll never forget it. I actually associate these songs with Christmas. Really? But if you go to a show and they've completely changed the arrangement and the vocals, somehow it just doesn't hit you with the same kind of familiar pleasure that you're used to, right? So they intentionally kept it exactly how the audience wants to hear those songs, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially since they're you know, they were originally done not that terribly long ago, and that's how people know them. So,
right.
You know, my wife is a huge fan of Mamma Mia. I think this will probably be the 6th or 7th time she's seen the show, and I know she would be very upset if it was like deviated too far from the norm. But yeah, so we might expect to see a little bit different choreography and different costumes, maybe a slightly different look maybe than last time we saw it come around, but pretty much
It's pretty much, it's just different actors bringing a different, maybe a different, slightly different take than it's cast before. Like I said, I've only seen the movie, so I know the movie, they made a lot of changes like they do in film, but this is the stage play, which was a phenomenon, It just like it sort of set the standard for the jukebox musical because of its success, because it predated Jersey Boys and all the other successful ones to come. And I think everyone was like, oh, this is not only a great way to bring joy to an audience, this is a great moneymaker because audiences know these songs, and it's hard to get that recipe right. And you just see so many shows on Broadway try it and fail. And Mamma Mia it just clicked,
Right. Hey, I wanted to switch to just asking you a little bit about just being an actor in a touring production. What is that like? So you're all in hotel rooms. Do you do stuff together? Do you kind of like have different things in different cities you like to do, or how do you spend your days?
It's interesting because you get close on Broadway, but you go home to your lives here on tour. There is no home. You go back to the hotel that we're all staying in, a housing. And so it becomes an even more definite version of a family, for a road family, friendships develop. And I mean, like the other night, we just all piled in somebody's room and watched a horror movie. And then a couple of nights ago, we all had a bingo night with prizes where we just played bingo and called out numbers and win prizes. And it's actually one of the things I was most looking forward to, because the Village People is great, but those guys have been in the band since the late 70s. So they have their lives. They go do the show and they go home, and it's fun, but it's not a family like that. It's people you work with that you like, but we didn't all hang out that much. And I missed that. I missed that for 10 years of that support system and friendship. And some of these people will probably be friends of mine for the rest of my life because you get so close because it's a concentrated living.
Right. And how long is this tour?
A year. Well, It's a little bit over a year because they've added some dates in Toronto and Boston. But I think most of actors in general, we signed for a year. So you're out for a year on the road, which is crazy because I was packing up my apartment in New York for the sublet, and how do you pack for a year? That's I was like, well, I need this knife, but I don't have room for this blender. It's such a strange thing to pack for a year,
Yeah. And do you have is there ever any much in the way of breaks in between? Like, do you ever get a week off, or is it just go, go, go?
You can every 6 weeks, I think you accrue a week vacation that you can take. But this tour has some built-in breaks. Like we have 2 weeks off at Christmas and New Year's, and we have a week off at 4th of July, which was just built into the contract. So that's sort of nice. So we have, so it gives you a respite, from the 8 shows a week and the travel on your day off, which is, it can be exhausting. So it's really nice. I did not have that in my other tours. This is the first time I've come across that, but I welcome it.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, I can't let you go without asking a little bit about being in the Village People for 10 years. Which character did you say you played?
I was a cowboy.
And this was the Village People. It was like the official band, right? And
I was doing a play off Broadway, and I got a call from the manager who had seen this show I'd done on Broadway called Hands on a Hard Body. Because I'm from Alabama, played a lot of Southern characters on Broadway and even in commercials. So I had a lot of cowboy imagery of myself already out there. And I didn't know they were still together. So I was like, no, I don't. Sorry, I'm not really available, but thank you. And I politely hung up. And then 3 days later, my show got closing notice. And I was like, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep. Hey, is that cowboy thing still open? And I thought I would just do it until I got another show. But I got on the road with him, and it was so fun and refreshing. And I got to see the world. It was just this crazy, like, wasn't even on my radar dream, and I'd work with people whose CDs that I've been listening to, or cassettes, back in the 80s. We do a lot of rewind festivals. So, and the guys were great. So it just turned into this amazing opportunity. So I thought, I'm just going to take this adventure, and I'm going to see the world, and it has a similarity to Mamma Mia in that on Broadway, doing a new play. It's expensive, right? So people come in with their arms folded, like, give me my money's worth, prove to me that this was worth my, but with Mamma Mia, they want to hear those songs sung really well, and they want that joy, right? So they come into Mamma Mia excited. They're thrilled. They're already with you, right? Because you're singing the songs they love. And Village People was sort of similar. We wore those costumes, we sang those songs, and they came in, you walk into the joy as opposed to having to win them over, you know?
Right.
So it's very interesting that I've gone from that to a nice sort of easy transition back into walking into audiences that I love you without having to win them over so much, you know?
Yeah, I can definitely see. I never really thought of, ABBA and Village People, but I mean, you can see this. The zeitgeist has got some overlap there.
Right.
And
they're very known for their costumes and for their look, and it's music that sits in your ear. It's very happy music.
And everybody sings along, right?
Everybody sings along.
Oh my God. Yeah. I saw the Village People at Copper Mountain, I don't know, it was quite a while ago, probably even before you were in the show. I don't know. But I mean, I was struck by how much even people who were born long after the Village People were big in the 70s or whatever, seem to know all the words to a lot of these songs. And it was just hilarious. And people just had a great time,
It was such a weird, I remember we did one of my early, in the first 3 months, I did a concert. It was Brazil Day in New York on Fifth Avenue. And there was 250,000 people. And you're standing on stage and you're doing YMCA, which is the song that all over the world, just tribes in Africa, everyone knows this song. And watching you make that many people do those arm movements, it was sort of cultish, weird. It was I was so freaked out with my mind that we were making all these people do these arm movements. But I think that's part of the success of that song. You don't have to be able to dance to do that song, right? So it gets everybody on the floor who's afraid of dancing, right? And they didn't intend that, but that's sort of what happened. And that's why that song has become the ultimate get people on the dance floor party song.
Right. Wow. What an experience that must have been to be there. And you traveled all over the world with it, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they would fly us to, China to do one song at their American Idol show or something, So it was sometimes we play a wedding, and then we'd play casino, and then we'd play a popcorn festival in Idaho. And then, and sometimes you were so fancy, and sometimes you were just salt of the earth people,
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. It really was just a gift.
All right. Well, you're jumping back into that kind of fire, the good fire with Mamma Mia. So Jim Newman plays Bill at Mamma Mia, which will be at the Denver Center Buell Theatre from October 31st through November 5th. So fairly short run. So if you like Mamma Mia, you need to get on the denvercenter.org website and grab your tickets here pretty quick. So, Jim, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us on the OnStage Colorado podcast. Break a leg out there in Elmira, New York, which I think is Western New York somewhere, I think. Or
it's upstate New York. It was about a 4-hour drive from Manhattan. Not so bad.
Okay. And so you'll be out here in Denver next week. So we'll look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, we'll see you. Come out. Have some joy. It's a good time in the world to be experiencing 2.5 hours of joy and escape. Right?
That's right. All right. Well, thanks again, Jim.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, that's it for this week's episode of the OnStage Colorado podcast. Thanks so much to Jim Newman for coming on to talk about Mamma Mia and his years with the Village People. That was a great conversation. And also for Toni Tresca for helping out again, running through all the stuff that's going on stage in Colorado. Next week, we'll have Amelia Morse with the Morse Actors Studio on the pod. She was the intimacy director for the Benchmark production of Blasted and a bunch of other stuff, and we're excited to talk with her about that. It's a great conversation about the rise of the intimacy coordinator or director in theater and film. Great stuff coming up. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the OnStage Colorado podcast, wherever you get your audio stuff. And please give us a review or a couple of stars if you're enjoying this programming, and let the other theater lovers in your life know about us. Be sure to check out all the reviews, news, other podcast episodes, and our full statewide theater calendar on the website at onstagecolorado.com. I'm Alex Miller, and we'll see you at the show.